So there's a bit of irony for a talk entitled Talk, and the person who's supposed to be talking isn't able to join us today. It's actually my wife. And so what we're going to hear today is a story of parallel lives, hers and mine, and the confusion or misunderstandings that can exist when we don't talk.
I'm an art teacher, which means as soon as I finished college, I was competing for a job. And so that meant everything that I did had to be as close to perfect as I could make it. And I carried that mentality into just about everything that I did. So from trying to be a perfect employee, to being a perfect daughter, to being a perfect wife, to being a perfect mom, I kept pushing and pushing and pushing myself. And with the help of social media, I was constantly comparing myself to other professionals out there, other mothers, other families, and checking to see if I was measuring up. And I wanted to make everything as great and as wonderful as it could be.
And so at the same time, my wife is making these comparisons with social media. I didn't need social media to tell me that my life was pretty awesome. I had everything really that I thought I wanted and knew that I wanted, which was a great family, two beautiful girls, my daughters, my wife then, and I had a career that I loved. And so I didn't need to make these comparisons. So the whole time where I thought everything was going just fine, I didn't realize that my wife was continuously looking at some sort of imaginary benchmark that had been set.
The truth is, as much as I wanted everything to be perfect in my life, it wasn't something that was truly attainable. I couldn't be the best at everything. Some things I had to give a little bit, and that was really hard for me. So I began to almost act out my life. I began to portray this person that I really wasn't, and it was exhausting for me. All day I tried to pretend that I was really happy, really enjoying everything that I was doing. I had to pretend that I wasn't feeling overwhelmed, that I was handling everything, and I was constantly taking on more and more and more because I thought that's what I should be doing. I thought that's what all the other people my age were doing. We say yes to everything, we do everything that we can, and I was really starting to burn out.
And so what would happen on a regular basis is, at home at night, I'd look over on the couch after the kids were in bed and I would say, do you want to watch well, we're not going to watch anything because she was sleeping. And then on the way to work, when we would drive to work together, that was oftentimes where we would talk about things. And now instead of talking about our days ahead, I would catch her just, taking a quick nap. And I began to wonder, what's changed? And so maybe, does she not love me anymore? What has happened? And so the whole time where I'm trying to figure these things out, I didn't know that she was so exhausted from really pretending about how things were going.
I didn't realize how difficult things had become until there's one specific moment that I can remember very clearly. Adam's a volleyball coach, my husband, and his team was having a really great season. So they were doing great in the section, and they had made it to the Whitfield championship game, and it happened to be a home game, which meant that I was able to go, and I wanted to play that role of being the supporting wife, great mother. So I brought my two little girls with me. Our youngest was 1 year old, the other one was 3. So they were a lot to manage, and so I packed up the bags with snacks and drinks, and we were ready to go support the team and support their dad. And so we went, and honestly, I didn't see any of the game. I was so busy taking care of the girls, and so I was there, but at the same time I wasn't. But I tried to be present, and I tried to experience that moment, and they ended up winning. And so the entire gym was just in this roar of excitement, and here I was trying to keep track of my daughters. We quickly tried to find Adam, my husband. The girls gave him quick hugs. It was way past bedtime, and so we left kind of in a rush, and the girls started crying because they never liked leaving their dad behind. They like it best when we're all together. So I had them in the car, I was buckling them in, they're both screaming and crying. It had been a long day, And as we were driving down 51, I burst into tears. So the girls are crying, I was crying, and I just had this moment where I felt like I can't do this anymore. I can't pretend to be managing all of these things that I really felt like I wasn't doing well with them at all. And so in that moment, with all three of us crying in the car, I thought to myself, if I can just get home, if I can just get both of the girls into bed, tuck them in, get them to sleep, I could go into my bedroom and just die.
And so at the exact same time that I was experiencing really some of the ultimate professional joys that I've ever had in terms of coaching, my wife is at home at really one of the lowest points of her life. And I didn't know. So I'm very excited. I'm ready to continue this volleyball season. I don't know anything that's happening at home. And when I try to talk to her, she's excited for me. But at the same time, there was this very, very dark cloud hanging over top of her that we just didn't share.
That wasn't the first time that I had suicidal thoughts. It's something that had been part of my adult life. But what was horrifying and disappointing to me is that I was considering leaving these two babies without a mom. And so I was incredibly disappointed in myself. The fact that that thought had crept into my mind sickened me. And as a result, I was even harder on myself. I felt like this huge failure. And so I pushed harder and harder and harder to do better, to pretend to be everything that I thought I was supposed to be. And that was overwhelming and completely exhausting. And so instead of being this great mom that I wanted to be, I think I did pretty good acting through the school day and pretending that I was fine there. But when I came home, I had nothing left in me. And so I was sleeping a lot.
And so now I would, it was getting to the point where it became frustrating. And I would say, why are you so tired all the time? You come home from school, you take a nap, we play with the kids for a little bit, and then right as they go to bed, you go to bed. And so it was during this period of time where we started to drift a little bit more. And again, it was because I didn't know everything that was happening. And because I didn't know, I wasn't able to be truly understanding of the things that my wife was in need of.
After finally talking to Adam about that night of the Whitfield Championship game and the thoughts that were going through my head, I was lucky to have a really supportive husband, because he did everything that he could to rearrange our schedules, to give me some time to myself so that I could try to figure out who I was again and what roles I wanted to play and what I could handle. But it seemed like no matter what we tried to do, no matter how much free time I had, no matter how much support he gave me, I just couldn't get myself to where I wanted to be. I just wasn't enjoying things. I wasn't happy. I just didn't feel like myself. And it wasn't until almost 2 years later, actually this past summer, where I was watching TV and a commercial came on about depression, and at the end there was a little thing about taking an online quiz, and I thought to myself, well, I can take the quiz, that doesn't mean anything. And so I took one quiz, I took another, and I took another, and all of them came back that I was moderately depressed. And that really wasn't a shock to me. I already knew that, but it was hard for me to look at those words and finally acknowledge that, yes, I had a problem. And even after taking those quizzes and admitting to myself that I was depressed, it was really hard for me to make the phone call to my regular doctor to go and talk to them, because I just felt so ashamed of myself. But with the support of my husband, I eventually did make that phone call, and finding that courage to go to the doctors was hard. But I did it, and as soon as I started talking to the nurse and kind of checking in, and then to my doctor, I felt totally normal. In those conversations, I realized that there are so many people who are struggling with different things in their lives. So not every story is the same as mine, but there are solutions to a lot of those problems. And I'm so thankful that I finally went and got treatment and was able to start feeling like me again, was able to start enjoying my life again.
And it was at this point, after our conversation, about really where, she was at, that I said, you can have as much time as you need. The time that you need now is not nearly as important as the time that we can all spend together in the future. So going to actually talk to the doctor and figure out certain things was very important. And so that was part of the beginnings of opening up the communication and talking, that as stigmatized as it is sometimes to talk about depression, it is actually one of the most beneficial things you can do to help to get rid of it or help to alleviate the problem.
I really wrestled with the idea of whether or not I wanted to do this TED Talk about depression and suicide, because it's just something that we don't talk about, and I think that should change. I think we should be able to have open conversations about how we're feeling and what we're thinking and not feel judged for it, because there are so many people who are going through their own personal battles and struggles, and I wish that I had talked sooner. Whether it was just to my husband or to a doctor or anybody who could have pointed me in the right direction. Because I really hate that I wasted over 4 years of my life feeling miserable when there was a solution right there the whole time.
And so prior to this whole experience within my own family, I always thought that depression, wasn't a real thing. That maybe the right thing to do for depression was to get someone a puppy and let them just kind of be happy, and then it would all just go away. But what I've learned is that that's not really the case. That sometimes, your body just stops making certain things that you need to feel happy. It would be like saying if you're going to give a cancer patient, a puppy to cure cancer. It doesn't work. And so the keys here are to, seek help when you need it. And my wife and I have talked about this, that, losing 4 years, and we don't really consider them lost, but maybe they were 4 years that could have been better, that could have been more open, that could have been more joyous and happy, especially for her. But to look back on those 4 years, what's more important are the years ahead. And the keys to this is talking and to being open and to not feeling ashamed or wanting to hide the feelings that you have inside. Thank you.